I'll be adjusting the colour on the leaves to reflect more of the true colour. It doesn't have to be exact, but it needs to have an overall look of the colour of the leaves. So I reflect back to my camera on my phone and actually look at that as well. As you'll notice that the leaves themselves have wilted quite badly, and so you can't rely on that any longer. What I have noticed is the colour of this leaf is not right, and it's very patchy. It doesn't look attractive at all. The other leaf, this leaf looks really beautiful. This one's not too bad, but I'm getting back to this leaf. So what I'm going to do is with a sable brush, I'm going to get raw sienna again. And so as I wet this leaf, it'll change, and the raw sienna will actually sit over the yellow part of it here and make that look greener. So if I just brush over that to start with, and then don't get into that colour a great deal, this will start to then get the leaf to have a much softer look to it. The paint's actually gathered up as I've been painting, and this way it will actually settle that back down and it'll have a much softer look to the leaf. So I don't let it get too dry, put more water back on it, and just keep working in the leaf until I get it to look soft again without too much colour. But what it's actually doing is changing this colour. That's the colour that I actually wanted to change more so than the green itself. But in doing that, that will actually smooth it out as well. So if you've got some work that looks patchy, then you can just come back, re-wet it and work into that colour, and that will soften that leaf out. There's also a couple of highlights. There's a turn back on the leaf round about there, and so if that's turned back, then it would have a highlight coming back down here. So I can take that back at this stage, dry it on the tissue beside me, and that will head back in there and have a bit of a highlight on that to start with, and that'll give me more dimension into the leaf. It'll just save me from losing the light, and that's the important thing, always to keep your light. There's still places through there that looks patchy through here. The undercolour's not going too dark, so that's good. If it was going darker, I'd stop doing what I'm doing, but it's okay. So I'll keep working back into that, pull that back so I've still got the pink edge. I still could have a little bit more of a green edge there. So if I pick up more of the green, I can just let that come out now and get just a little bit of the edge in it, because that'll come out and do that for me at the same time. The same as the pink. I can still come back, pick up the pink that's dry here on the palette and add that to that section there, and that will give me just a little bit more pink coming into the edge. Now that'll dry out, and then I'll start to detail the leaf. Moving on to the second leaf, there's a few things that need to change on that, and that would be the fact that the colour on there has changed dramatically, and also the detail. So there's some green to go on the pink, and there's also the other green to go on here. It's not the nicest of green, it's more a straight green. So the straight green would happen by using Windsor yellow instead of the raw sienna to make the green, and that will make a much brighter green, but it needs to be slightly darker to start to get into the darker greens. So this will now start to make a darker green, and I'll start with that. So I'll pick this leaf up and put it close by just to have a look at the pattern on the leaf and see what's going on with the actual leaf itself. So it has light green up here, but I'm going to start in the darker green here. It's not the same as the leaf, but I'm going to bring that green in through there and get the leaf to have a more positive green colour. If it's nice and wet, it'll actually not leave patches on the leaf. The shape of that coming down through there, it can have a little bit more shape where it comes out into there, comes back into a vein. So I'll let it do that. And now I'm adding this darker colour. Make sure you come up to the edges and get it really neat. I could change that shape too if I wanted to. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a light through there on the veins. Leave the pink that I actually left to start with and bring that out to the actual edges of the leaf. That's coming in through there, coming out, and this will be where I start to detail the leaves and get the leaves to have more information in them. That'll go into there, that'll come down and leave a little bit of light through there. And so it's all adding different personality to the leaf. It's giving the leaf form and structure by what I'm doing to it now. And so as I come down through here, I'll continue to do the veins, leave the veins there and come out through there and still down to about there. Then I'd stop. I'd just bring the colour down. The colour down through here is quite nice, so I'm just going to run back with the dry brush and take the paint back off that edge. I don't need it there, but I can have it on here where the veins are going to go into the leaf. Coming back to the other side, it has a little bit of a dip in it there, which is up the top. That could actually go into the darks, but on the camera I notice that it has a lot of the pink edges around that top edge. So I'm coming back to that. I'm not going to put colour over the whole leaf again because the leaf needs to end up with light, medium and dark. That's the balance of what I need on this leaf. It can be light where it's going over the other leaf behind, but I still think that it could have the pink on the edges of that. So I'm going to turn it now so I can get into the point of the leaf. And that would be into here in the point of the leaf. Looking at it upside down, that's a little bit too strong in the edges there. So I can soften that and come back to the green over on the end of this leaf. And I'm going to actually make that a little bit darker again by putting more ultramarine blue in. And that will make it darker down here on the leaf. So that's got more ultramarine in it. Made it a little bit bluer there, but that's all right. I'll put some pink in that and stop that from looking like it's blue and just damp back away from it. Get out to the edges. You need to hit the same edge as what you did originally when you actually painted it. Otherwise it looks different, doesn't look so neat. You'll have edges that you're showing with watermarks. Just put a little bit of the Pilbara red in the pink, and that will come into here and change over that colour. If I come out just past that and do a little bit rounder, that'll get me a nice shape into those leaves. And then that will finish off by coming back into that colour. Now that would normally cause a cauliflower. The way to get rid of that is to bring the paint back into it and stop it from cauliflowering, just to come back and touch that. That then goes into the pink edge and leaves the other edge. So up around the top edge of it here, I was going to actually add the pink to it, but I would have to let it dry after that. So I'll get the pink to be fairly strong. And then I can actually come back around here. That leaves wet, so I've got to make sure I don't get my hand in it. And just start to get this pink up over that edge. And that edge will start to come away. And I'll add pink up there. So that then gets moved away by just a damp brush. Now, this leaf is way too wet to do anything with, but I'll start work with the rigger, which is run under the board. And start to get some of the veins in. And so the veins are already brown. They're definitely a ready browny green. So I'll pick up some green and I'll also pick up some red. And so now I can come down through on that leaf and get some of the vein work going. That's the leaf here, and so now I can see that that vein comes down. I'll wet the leaf at the top, the stem, sorry, wet the stem at the top, which is up here, and just wet it. So what happens now, the colour won't sort of just stop there, it'll come down that vein. I'll just keep dropping it in until it sits there, and then I can start to actually get the veins on. Okay, so I've got the pink and the brown together. That'll come down through here and cause the vein on that leaf. That'll go down through there and finish off softly. So now I've got a solid vein, and I keep working in that vein and come out. There's veins through here, so I'll pick up a point and just start to get the vein to come down through there. That'll come down through. This one will start there and come out. It'll go into that wet paint, come out softly. There's another one through here. Another one down there. Now after that, if you keep going with too many veins, the leaf looks overpainted. So as long as the actual veins look like they're attached to the leaf and not overdone. The other thing I've done is picked up a leaf here that's one of the leaves, but a much bigger one and a much different shape. But what I do check when I'm actually painting is the vein formation, whether the veins come out opposites, whether they come out at random, and then I check different parts of it for colour, because the beautiful colours in this, any colours that you want to work in would be beautiful on a leaf that's so dark as that one. So now I know that they're not opposites. So I can start to work down through here. Just get the veins. Some of the veins come through where those holes are in the pink, not so much the hole, because that's a hole in the leaf. Just start to get some more to come down through there, and they're very, very fine. Okay, round the hole in the leaf, it is a hole, and so it would have little parts of it eaten around that hole. So what I'm doing is dampening it, and I'll get some of the greens, the darker greens, the reds, and then I'll put some of the lamp black in it, which is here, and that will get me a really sort of a dark browny sort of colour, and that can come in around the edge to that eaten part, not straight round the whole lot. Stop and start, and that then will look like you've got the eaten part to the leaf. If I let some of it come out further, just move it round slightly so it's got some marks on the leaf as well. That will show up that edge to the leaf. Like now you can see the white paper through, so you know it's an actual vein in the leaf around the hole that it's actually made. Now I've got a different pink that the brush has just made, so I'm going to use that in some of the veins, and then some of the edges coming out on those veins. The veins have other sections coming out on them, and I'll pick some of those up. Now once I've done too many of those, it's time to stop and get your brush and just come through some of them to settle them down, because you don't need to see them all over. You need to see them every now and again. That one's too dark. I'll just soften that. So if it looks like it belongs to the leaf, then that's all you need. Now this that I actually started to come up there with the pink on it, it just doesn't look right because you can see it really obviously. And so I'll leave that for a little while and then come back to it and just keep working until I get these leaves to look like they should. There's some veins down through here as well. There's a vein down through there. Veins off those veins. Now it's painting pretty well how it should. If it's painting with soft edges and very fine bits, that's how it is on the leaves. And you'd see it more about here on this part of the leaf. They'd sort of go behind each other, over each other, round through that edge, That will look more interesting if I took it to there and then took it past. So you've got a leaf action going on there. I'll turn it around and have a look and see what I've done. Okay, so now you're starting to see light sections to leaves where they'd be raised. I'm going back to a synthetic brush now, a smaller synthetic, which is a number 6 in an Escoda. And I'm going to come back with a tissue, water, tissue, dry the brush, a little bit damp, and then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to lift some paint. What that'll do is make that look like there's a rise in the leaf about there, because that paint will move out of the way. The drier it is, the easier it is for that to happen. So if I do that now, it'll get a really strong edge to that leaf. So not only can you put paint on, you can also take paint off. That'll come into there. I'll come out of it, come back into it. And so now I'm getting a highlight on that leaf. Also, some of the edges down here, I can get those a little bit neater, and that's by having a little bit more rose madder on my brush and a little bit more of the Pilbara red, and start to get some indication of a little bit more information on those edges. Just come out a little bit further. Put some more red on because that's stronger than the green that's there, and then take the edges of the back edge. It's important to take the back edge off with a. When I do that, I flatten the brush out with my fingers, and so now the brush is damp, but it's flattened, and so therefore it can shade into that colour and shade that onto the edge of the leaf. May take a little bit back there, but it'll only blend into that edge and give me the edge to the leaf that's got the edges. But now I've got a light edge behind it, so I'm better off to use that and come back to here and come back with a light that way. So that will give me another highlight. But I won't take too much out, or you'll start to notice. It'll start to be really obvious. Looking at the leaf, the highest part of the leaf is here, and I can actually get more colour out of that as well. So in the pink section, it needs more of the veins to be more obvious. I don't like that vein, that's too strong. So I'll come back here and soften these and just run water through that just to soften it, because it's looking really obvious. I don't mind that one. It's not straight, but that's all right. It doesn't have to be dead straight, and so it's really close to where you look at the leaf closely. So I'll just put some of the veins back on that. You don't want it to have no detail up in that section. All right, so I'll move on to the leaf that's wet actually. It's dry enough now to do some work with that leaf, and I need to actually get the idea of highlights on that leaf while it's still damp. And that was one of them. I was going to get the highlight there. That comes up round over and would have a highlight back there. Get that back. Some of the highlights in some of the veins and the leaves, I can take some back. That will just get the idea of where the highlights are on that. The green around here is a much better colour because it's got the colour of green. Before it was almost the paper colour and didn't look very attractive at all. What else needs to happen? There's a gap in the leaf here, and the leaf was there, but it was the green colour, so that's been missed. So that needs the green on here. Just fill that in, and then it can have the edge on that leaf later to come round. I don't like to go round everything really and put lines around everything because it looks overpainted. Just have a little bit of pink there that's got a line in it, so I can soften that and bring it out into just one of the peaks. Can't see the peak, so I'll put it on and then take off the edge. Okay, the stems that I've got happening on the artwork are not matching up. So I need to get a pencil and then come back and find these other stems, because the stem to this one was coming up from here, coming down to here. But this one I added to make it look more interesting. Now, if it was under there, I'd put it back under so that it would look like there's another leaf underneath this leaf, which would lift this one further off the page. It's time to leave the leaves behind and start to paint, to start to work the shapes that have been created already, not so much just by the drawing of the leaves, but what I see happening on the paper. So it's time to look at those things, such as there's a kink in the leaf here. Now, it could either have a highlight on this side and depth on that side, and that would do a crease in the leaf, or it could have a complete dip in the leaf. There's a little mark there outside on the white paper, but I'll leave that for the time being and look at that later. There's a couple of ways to remove that. One is by putting water on your brush and then touching it with a tissue when it's dry, or there's another product that will remove it, and it's available in your supermarkets. So we'll talk about that later. So I'll turn this to actually be able to work sideways into that area. And I need to get the point of the brush into what I want to create. So I'm picking up Winsor Yellow and Ultramarine, and I'm putting a little bit of lamp black in it. I've got lamp black here, and that will make a dark green. And so the brush isn't very wet. It just needs not to drag on the paper, but if it's too wet, it'll just change the rest of the artwork. So now I'm coming in round there and getting that dark in. And then I'll wash the brush and dry it on the tissue, and then just work the back edge of that paint out really quickly. Otherwise it marks and you'll get a line around it and you won't be able to get rid of that line. That will shade into that and make it look like it's dipped down. If I can see that ring too much, I'll just touch it with the point of the brush and get that to shade out of the way. So that's actually created a dip down. Okay, so then this is a turn back in the leaf. And again, I need the point of the brush to go into that edge to create it. And then there's a shadow down through here that's created that dip in the leaf as well. So that becomes the dark green again with a little bit of black in it. Not too much, just enough to make it darker. That goes in and turns around. It must turn around, comes into the points of that leaf, and that's enough. Okay, if I go too far, it's too noticeable. Then if I lay the brush down, it actually shades into that area for me all by itself. I don't have to do that. So now I've stopped, because if I join it up, then that's all I've got is just that mark. Now this is going to shade back up underneath here and shade around behind it. So if I put paint along the back edge of this and just along there, and then again wash and dry the brush and just go along the back edge of that, it will make it look like it rolled away from me. And so then I'll come the opposite way, and I can put the edge on the front edge of this turnover where it's actually just the change of the direction of that, and put the darker colour on the edge of these now. I've got one there, and one there. And that goes into the leaf, disappears by just coming out through there. And then I've got to get the shading down through the leaf. Now when you lay your brush down properly, you'll get that shading that'll happen all by itself, and you won't have to struggle to get that to happen. So I'm loading the brush again with the darker green plus the black, and it's basically on the point of the brush. It's a little bit wet at the moment, I can tell that, so I'll just dry it on the tissue, and then I'll come back up underneath here and get that to go in on that edge. Now that comes in through there and rolls and gets that darker edge. The darker edge can come through that green, but lighter. And that just shades into the edge of the leaf. I'll turn it around and see what happened. And so it's a soft roll. So at the moment it's a hard roll because it's a hard line. So now if I wet the other side of that, that'll soften that line and it'll come over that line now because it's damp. So if I come back, it'll actually soften that line and have a softer line coming over. And so then it looks like there's a crease in the leaf itself. I'll leave this dry. There's no use playing with something that's still damp because it'll only make a bigger mess. That it needs to dry and then I'll come back to it. So I need to have a look at the rest of the leaf and see. I've got another dip here that I could actually take out. It's not worth raising it up, I don't think, to come in because I could take that colour back and get that to look like it's raised, but it's not the shape. So you've got to work with what shape you actually created. You can't sort of make it happen. You've got to work with what you've got. I could still get some more pink down the edge of this, and that would probably be really nice if I could get some more rose madder down along that edge. So with the Pilbara red in it again, and I've got just the point of the brush, and I'll just come down through some of these and just get a little bit of an edge down some of those edges. There's only a couple I could get there, and then wet the back of it, and that will just bring that softly onto the leaf. So you'll see that strength in the pink in some places, and then I'll lay the brush down and shade it again, and that will still continue up with the soft pink, but I'll leave a little bit of a sharp edge on those, which makes it more interesting. The same with these. They're not showing that they've got that characteristic of the leaf itself. And so again, I'll come back here and do part of them, and just that side of them. Where's there another one? Just that side. And then take the edges out of that paint. That's just by damping that back behind it, and that'll just leave that edge sort of showing up stronger. And so now I need to look at what am I going to do with the centre vein. The centre vein needs to be either wiped out or painted on. So what I'll do to start with is wipe it out to show you that it's possible to do that with a 1/2 inch square shader. Again, with the tissue in your hand. This is where you need a tissue in your hand, and if I just go down that line and touch it, that will come off the paper. So that will leave that to be lighter just by me coming down with that brush. Wash the brush again and dry it because it gathers up on the brush. You don't need a lot of pressure. It just simply lifts up. That'll leave just a very, very nice thin vein. That would give me a highlight in the vein, the same as if I come back to this one that was already painted and do the same thing. I'll get a centre to that vein just by putting the water on and running down. That will make it look dimensional, like that looks completely flat. That looks flat, that looks dimensional. The same with these. These are a bit wider than what they really are in reality, but I can come back and fix that as well. So now those have a highlight in them. The same as these ones need to go dark. Where it's light, I go dark, and where it's dark, I get light. So that's the theory also of watercolour, that your opposites are happening. So now I'm going to actually wet that stem, and it was up into here, come down through here and turned into the pink. So now I've got the pink, and so if I put it up there, it'll run wherever it wants to. It looks like it's got a bit of black in the brush, so I'll take that off. It's a bit too dark. It's gone up into there. I can change that later, but that'll run along those that branch that I actually that I wet, and so it's not moving very far. So I'll just come back and help it just to move. Now a stem that's like that is much more interesting, where they stop and start, than if you paint the whole stem. So now I'm coming back for the rest of the stem, and this is wet, so it'll run. Get the stem on through there. It's getting dry now, very dry. And that's enough just to get the start of that stem on. Now, if I did that and went down and around, that would make it look like the leaf changed direction. Not a lot, but just slightly, as if it changed direction and went somewhere else. Now, a lot of the veins on this particular one will be done with a nib and paint that I'll actually mix a colour and do the actual veins, because they are very, very small. The veins are tiny, and so while I'm doing that, I'll just wet this one and get this one on. Wet it down. Don't want it to go too far, so I'll dry that a little bit there. Pick up the colour, drop it into the actual stem, and let it run. Now it can go wherever it likes from there. It can go up or down, but it will make it more interesting. What I'll do is just get the other side of it, maybe just there. There's a bit of a lump in it. I'll do that and let it do its own thing. So now you don't have a stem, and I've actually put this leaf over the top of that stem and made another stem going behind for simple artistic license, I guess you could say, by having a dimension going underneath the leaf. It could be a smaller leaf that's under here or another branch or something, but it makes these actually in front and then something behind them, and that's always more attractive in your work. I'm going back to some of these edges and get some of these edges in the darker green, because this leaf does not look that happy at the moment. And so I'll pick up areas where I can get sections of it, and it needs to be upside down. I need to be this way to do something, and I'll come back here and get some darks out in this area here. So this will bring darks onto the leaf. And again, what I was saying about lay your brush down and shade. Oh, it's got a really dark patch on it now. Must have had blue up in the top of the brush. Don't worry, just keep moving it around. And that'll put that darker colour out through there. If I wanted to do anything with it and move it round, I'd move it up into here where the veins are. I'd move it up that way. So then I've done something with that paint rather than just leave it sitting there. Take the edge off, and now it's got a darker edge on the leaf. And also the point of the leaf can have dark, so I'm looking for overall colour, highlights, which there's not a lot of highlights yet, and then depth. This one wasn't going to the bottom of the page either, so now I'm going to put the dark on the bottom edge of this, and they have a very fine edge on them as well, like a more of a point. So I'm just going to put that point on, lay the brush down and shade, and I can shade up to a certain point. That can get dark green in around there. They do have a bit of an edge in the dark green as well on them. So now the leaf is going darker. Drag that back up this way. So that'll get me just that edge of the green in it. And so it's got a light edge over here. I'll leave that because it needs that relief of a light edge. I do see a dip in here. I see a bit of a dip. Maybe I can't make it into a rise. You've got to be realistic about it. You can't make a leaf do things that it's not going to. So I'll come back to where I was working over here before, so it should be dry enough now that I'll wet this And the rise is about there. It's got to move over. And so that will come in underneath that where the leaf actually ripped. It's not right at the moment. So I've got the darker green. I picked up that blue again too. Get rid of that. Pick up the green. Too much water. No control. If you've got too much water, you don't have any control of the paint. So I'll dry it on the tissue. It's pretty blue, but that's all right. And come back here and start to move that over. So that line there moves over to there. And in doing that, that'll roll over that, comes out round that edge and comes in behind that. So now that should look like it joins up with the turn. And it's rolling over the leaf and should come down this way. So as it rolls over the leaf, it actually rises, goes down, rises, and comes back up and over. So it should look like it goes that direction. Take out that back edge. That can disappear. And so now it's got the darks in behind that. Okay, so if it dips into the centre vein too, that would actually be darker, or it can be lighter that makes the leaf look like it rises up. I might do it there just for the sake of it, or maybe down here. And I'll do the whole section. I won't do it like I did on this leaf. I do things differently everywhere I go. So now I've wetted, and I'm just going to rub in that area there and get some light back. So now I'm getting some light back into that leaf. And then I'll get it darker in the centre of the leaf, along this vein here. I won't do it with that. That had straight blue on the brush. That's way too strong. And so now I'll put the dark in here. That will darken that and then come into that rise of the light that's showing up here. So now the leaf is getting a little bit better form to it. Some of these sections in through here, I could actually do more with them by actually taking out more light. Take out more light and get that to be a more definite shape. And they look good if they come up the vein. So if it went up the vein that way, take it back. I'll add the veins to these. And so you can see here how it's just looking like water. I can tidy that up later by just coming along the back edge of it. This appears to be a little bit lumpy there through there. I can just come back here and just pick up a bit of a line of the paint and just get that on one edge. So it's not showing lines everywhere, just a little bit of colour on the edge of that. And so now the branches become light and dark. We get to this little leaf and it's folded. This is the top part, that's the bottom part. And then you've got the vein. So I'll bring the darks into there. You notice I turn my work a lot. I can work on an easel if I need to, but I'd prefer to have it on the desk and turn it in different directions. So the vein will come through here, and then this will be the darks that will go completely underneath that and then disappear where it goes underneath the other section there. So that shades and does that all by itself. Don't have to worry too much about that. I'll have the veins over the top of that. And then you've got the red vein coming down the middle, and then that can be detailed. So I'll start to detail this one, I think. That'd be a great idea to get that detail so it's got something looking like it's a little bit finished. I'm still not happy with the darks on that. Same deal. If I play in it, I'm going to actually take more paint off than I get on. But I'm going to give it a go. I never go backwards when I'm doing stuff. I'll tackle it and keep working until I get it right. Okay, so what happens there for veins? The veins go down this way, so I'm going to add that into the paint to get it looking like it's going into the vein. So we'll go in there, come over, and then come down. So that's actually then starting to get something else happening in there with the veins. That way it takes the back edge off that paint, which has got very dark about there. Okay, I'll let that dry and then come back to it. Using a couple of drops of gum arabic, I'm going to make a penning consistency. Hope I only get a couple of drops. 1, 2. Gum arabic's part of your makeup of your paints. That's in the paints. And you can use that to lighten colours. But I'm going to use it at the moment to make a light pink or a darker pink for the veins. So I'll put the pink in, also some Pilbara red, a little bit more pink. If I'm going to go from that into the back into the rose madder, I need to wash my brush. So I've got a darker pink colour that I can use for the veins and that on the leaf. If they're too bright, then I can tame them down, or I can put a little bit of lamp black. That's what we're using, lamp black. That'll just grey it down a little bit and not make it so bright. It'll just quieten it down. And so now it's penning, and I've got the vein right here beside me with the veins, the leaf with the veins. And I'll pick that up. If I put it on the side, I'll possibly get more. I'll hold it. If I pick it up, I'll possibly get more paint. And so there's some very, very fine ones coming down that way, right from the top there. They then become fine and start to go out. I'll start again to add more to that one. That'll go out and come down through there. So these are very, very fine, and they're very fine on the leaves as well. That'll go down through there because some of these lights are right near where those lines are. So if I come down there, I'll pick up one of those lines. Down through here, pick up that one, pick up that one. Maybe go out through here, and I can see a line in the paint there. I'll use that as part of the vein. That's got to join up with that as well. That didn't join up. Neither's that. Neither's that. Okay, so looking at what's here, and I'll use that, not just what I think was on the leaf itself, because this has changed now. There's a line there. Pick that one up. There's a line there, so I'll pick that up and bring that in. Oops, nearly went weird. Down through there. Well, that was a long one. This one here can come down through there. That's probably far enough with that. Through here, I'm just going to get a couple of edges, just a little bit, not much. Just a little bit. To see that pink on the edges of that. Anything that I don't like the look of as such, I'll just get the edges back out with that and tidy up the edges. That's all I'm doing. I don't want to surround the whole thing, but some of these are looking really not that interesting. Again, these are a little bit odd in shape as well, but I'll do the other side first before I get to that. So they come out here with some little ones. That one there could go down into that dip. So this could come out and then turn and go down into that dip and then come out. So what happens where it goes over this rise, they come down. I'll get one to start with. They come down through here, come down through there. They separate and have others coming off them and going in behind that. And then they'll actually turn around over that, and then they'll come over. They'll come over that way and then down. Now that will give you the direction that that leaf's going. And so work from that they come down, they turn and come back over and then out from there. Yeah, that one's very thick. I'll just go back. It'll add into there. It won't be too much of a problem. This one needs one on that darker section. Do a shorter one. They're not all the same length, but just be careful of what I did there matches that. So that'll happen, but just let it go. You can try too hard. As I said, I checked out whether they're opposites or not. I brought some down through here, so I'm going to come back to those and put some off them. Simply because they're there and they're quite strong. I could take them off, but I'm not going to. Out into this area they become very, very fine. So if you can see anywhere like here, I'll come back and do some very fine ones. Back to the edge of the page. That'll be more realistic. And so the only one I said I wasn't happy was over here, and so I'll come back to that now. And you can see this is quite like a thickened cream quite consistency. It's not that runny, but just runny enough to go onto the nib and pen. It's a speedball nib made by Hunt's, and it's got a tiny, tiny little ball on the end of it. It's hard to see. Most people go, no, it doesn't, but it does. And that way you can work on paper very easily. Just get a little bit of a information part on there. Just come back in. Just something to make it interesting. And I'll bring some of those veins out to join into that. So it's got a little bit of something going on. And then around the turn, I'll just get a little bit of pink around that turn. Okay. Now I'll come back to this leaf and actually do some work with that one while I've got the colour mixed up. So just pick up some of these and come out with some fine ones off some of those. I'll just pick up some of them and get those to have a fineness out in this edge. They actually did come through some of these pink ones, because the pink ones are still the actual leaf. So if it come back through there, it could have some of it coming through and over that pink area, because it's not mist, it's actually on the leaf. There's something that was on this leaf that I haven't put on. There was some very light green through there. So I'll get that on as well. The edges of this one's not too bad. I'm not that unhappy with that. This can have a rollover on it, this end to the leaf. Because they do roll quite a bit, I'll actually get that to have a roll. And so with the smaller brush, I'll get the darker green and put a roll on that. So the roll would happen here. I can see that there. Remember, it was serrated, a little bit of serration, and that would roll back into that edge, and that would roll that leaf over. Just get a little bit more because that goes off the page. I want it to go off the page properly. And then that gets that roll into there. So that actually does something to the leaf to give it some more character and give it some strength. So you're looking at overall colour, highlights, it's got some lighter areas, and depth. It doesn't have so much depth, but I could actually get more depth on this side. Something that would match that depth would be interesting because I've got it here, and I'd look around for that depth when I was actually painting. So I'm going to come back down here and get some depth over that side, and that will balance that out. So you're looking for balance in your work, looking for colour change so that you've got some interest going on. And I was talking about here to get some dark. So what I'm going to do is put the brush down quite strongly, get some dark. Now I can't keep it wet for very long because once you've actually painted it, and the paint underneath is very happy to rise again and come out of there. And so now I've actually shaded that leaf a little bit further away there, that it looks like it's got more depth that matches the colour that I've got happening around the artwork. The leaf up here, it can have its veins on too while I'm doing the veins. It's got its centre vein not painted, and so I can paint that to start with, which is the rose madder and Pilbara red. And so remember before, I wet it before I painted it, and that's part of it, that if you wet this back here, it'll join itself on. I don't have to join that on if that's wet. It'll come on, and if I put the brush down and have enough water on the brush, which I don't, it'll decide that it wants to go somewhere else and go up the end of that slightly. It hasn't done it much, so I'll drop some more in. I'll keep going until it does what I want it to do, which would be to run back up there where I wet it. And that's to tilt it so that it's running back up, and then bring it down on the branch. And it disappears underneath there. Dry the brush, I've got too much water on the brush. Disappears into a very, very fine point, and I'll get that by flicking into that. Flicking into there will make it go back in underneath. I'm not sure it's done that entirely, so I'm just going to move that. That's it. Now the veins on that are done the same, and we're just about out of this. I'll have to make more for up here, but I've still got to do some more work on that leaf first. So this has very fine veins on it. Some little ones. They have a few little ones at the top before they start the others. Now because that's in dark, I'm not going to go right in. I'm going to come out from about there because you wouldn't see it all the way underneath in the darks. So it would be about there that you would actually start to see it. Check out the branch where I put it on and it didn't decide to go up there and run up very quickly, and I want to keep it light there. I want it light there because that's the bit that's looking closer to you. So while I'm here, I'll do the rest of those branches. I won't do that one, but I'll do the rest of these by wetting it. I'll do it to about there. Keep it wet. Goes out through the artwork and it comes round and down there. That become very thick there, I think. But I'll find out when I put the paint on because it'll do its own thing then. And so this is the branch getting up near the top edge here with water. Drop it in and see what happens. See where it's going to go to. See what's wet and what's not. That'll go around there and come down to here. Now that needs to be neat to make it look like it goes underneath. And so now it's got light and dark. It will need to go out of here just a little bit softer. I can actually add a little bit more interest to that stem by coming back with some of the brown, which is the Pilbara red, and just touching it in a couple of places on the dry paper, especially there on the dry paper, will make it stay. As soon as it's dry paper, it won't actually run anywhere, it'll stay on the dry. All right, so now this is the next leaf to be actually painted. And looking at the leaf, the shading, it needs to be shaded underneath this roll, and it is a roll. So a roll needs to be damp first on this side. So it will roll into that and put the darks underneath that roll, which is through here. It's in the green. It's darker. And it goes into here for the roll. So if I come up to that paint, it should give me a soft edge. Lay it down and shade. So if you actually scrub the brush at different angles, it won't leave a straight line across the back, it'll leave a bit of an interesting line. Now if I hold it that way, it should start to come up over that wet paint and just give me a soft edge, which is what it's doing now. It's just giving a really, really soft edge in it. The next place I need to work is underneath this leaf to actually get that to happen. And it's a really, really deep reddy colour on that leaf. Down in here, you can't see now because it's dying, but it has a really bronzy red colour in it. So I'll put quite a bit of rose madder and the Pilbara red into the colour I make to actually paint that in the green. That'll make a really different sort of a colour. So I'll pick up the green, making it quite a dark sort of green, and then I'll pick up the red. So now it's a browny red, and I'll start to work underneath here. So I've got to get the edge to that and the edge to this at the same time. So I'm going to come up underneath there, and that's got to go in straight underneath there, and it's quite dark, so I'll lay the back of the brush down, come in through there. I could get a little bit of a edge in that, and I'm making a new edge to this leaf. I can make it whatever I want it to be. I don't want it to be right the way around here, although that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. It's got to come in and go down that way. Now, if I bring it out darker this way and get the dark there and the dark here, shade that in and then shade back into here and bring that up. So as I'm scrubbing, it's bringing that darker colour up into this section here. So now you see that this leaf is in front of the other leaf. It's a bit long in the tooth there, but I'll leave it because the more I play, the less I get. It actually gets messy after that. So I'm going to get the same colour that I just used, which is the green plus the red. And I'm going to come back in here somewhere. I like what's going on there, so I'm going to leave that. Possibly in through here maybe, just in through that vein. That's where the vein is, and I'll bring it over to match into that. So that gives me some strength in the leaf now. But, as I said, the more you keep brushing, the less you've got, because it will actually change the leaf. Even that light and dark there, that's not too bad. That goes into a little bit of a light section there. That's all right. And so the green at the end here and around those sections needs to be done. I have drawn this leaf up. I've drawn some of the veins on it to get the direction that they're going. This is a turn back that we had earlier, and so that needs to have the colour behind it as well. And I'll do that just in the straight green. And so that comes in, goes around, up. Now it can have some little notchy bits in it. And then over this side and around that side. I try not to get it to go right the way around. So it's over that way and then it's over this way. It can join up, but it can't just go straight round things. It just flattens things out and makes it look unattractive. So that's got a dip in the leaf. Could be a rise, could be a dip, whatever you want to make it. So if I made it a rise, I'd have colour each side of it and light through here. That would actually bring that up off the paper. Just depends what you want to do with it. Possibly the easiest at this stage is to make it a dip, and that's just to put the paint in there. We've got another dip there. So that would add a little bit of repetition to the artwork. So I'll come up to that section there and put a dip in that leaf there. So again, the green. I'm going to put the red in it too. I like the red in the green. So now it's a dirty colour. I have to turn it so the point of the brush is going into the dip. Don't want to take the blue out there either. So I'll just put it in here and stop there and shade it back. Shade it around into that. Dry the brush. I tried to get the whole palette in the view so that you could actually watch how much water I pick up. The water is at the top there, so I can see the water. I need to know how much water I put on my brush when I do it, and I need to be able to put it on a tissue and dry it. I need to get back to this quicker than I did. That's all right. Quickness is a part of it as well, I find myself. That if you're slow, then your paint dries and you don't get that edge coming around. It could have a lighter edge as it goes down to that dip. Is it worth it? Probably not. Could just get that edge there lighter, and that will go into that dip, but I don't need to take anything out of the dip, so I'll just damp it. That'll just give me a little bit of light around here. Now if I scrub on it, it just keeps going till the brush dries out, and that'll stop what's happening. Now if I took too much out there, I'm better off to use it as something to come into here. Now you can see that pushing the paint to that vein. We'll do that as well. You can use that instead of trying to straighten that out. Use the paint for something and put it somewhere else. It's a bit wet. That's better. Okay, so now it's got some light on there. Now we're talking about the darker section to the leaf. And so that goes out to the point of the leaf, which is out this way, and comes around some of those areas there. So I need to make a fair bit of paint. It doesn't have to be over dark, but I've got a fair bit of paint. Rose madder, some of the Pilbara red, and I think it's just a straight green, so I'm going to lift that. I don't like that. I'm going to make it a straight green. Of course, I've got the red on the actual leaf, so I'm going to make it a straight green. Just wet that. Straight greens there. Okay, so it needs to go out to the point of the leaf, which is what we didn't have originally. That goes off the paper. It comes in and goes across the leaf. I'll have to turn it slightly that way. Comes in round those red sections. Leaves those a little bit stronger than what they were. I'll stop as soon as I can because I don't want to get too much on there. Oh, there's another one. That'll make those stand out more. They was a little bit wishy-washy before. So I'll turn it this way and come back round from here now so that I'm not getting too much over the rest of it, because the more you actually paint on that, the less you're going to gain, because you're taking out beautiful colours that were there originally, and those first colours are the best colours on the artwork. They're the most striking colours. Just take out some of the edge of that to the edge and just do as little as possible in through there just to get that dark on the leaf. And now I've got the really strong dark colour on the end that matches the others. And so now it's getting a little bit more unity in the artwork. There's something missing down the bottom here, was that green, very light green section, and I'm going to put that in now. There was a section in here that was quite light, so I've just got water and just a little bit of paint, and it's quite wet. And that can go in through there and just give me that light green that I was missing earlier. Back to this leaf. To get a turn round in a leaf, to get a turn over, you need the colour to be in the back edge. And I had that really strong green red colour, and I'll put that on. So I need to not get my hand in the rest of the artwork. That goes on the back of that. And then quickly wash and dry the brush and just damp it behind here, and it will roll into that colour. And so you get that colour coming up round there. If I put a bit more on, that will make it a bit stronger, which would be good because it's quite dark at the back in this colour. And so that will just get that colour to come around and up around that roll. So I think now it's right to have some more of the greens and pinks and colours. There was more to this green here, I think, so I'm just going to pick up more green and just get a little bit more green in through here. Just on the other side of that, just to accentuate that pink line. And the green up through there, and then I'll detail this leaf. Just soften that. Soften some of the edge of that. And then start to detail this one. So I'll start out, and I'll leave the vein on this one. This one was very dark, so I'm going to not wipe out the vein. And just get the two reds together. And start with that as the stem. And so the stem on that will be water. Remember the water along here, up to the stem, goes around. So now when I actually put that on, it's going to run backwards. That's where the stem is, and you're going to run down there. You're supposed to run down there. Okay. Smooth paper. Working with smooth paper, if I was doing an artwork where I was doing a very soft work, there's one rule that when you wet the paper once, you need to wet it twice, because it actually dries that quickly that it didn't run at all in, and it should have run. So I'm coming around here, and the reason I turned it that way is that the centre vein's coming around that direction. Now that's the turn of my wrist. My wrist turns that way. It doesn't do something over the other side and tries to get that arc in the paint. It has to come this way. And so this is the vein coming through, coming around over that. It's getting a little bit thinner. It's got to head to here, so it's got to take a turn. And that's about as far as I'm going with that. Now, I'll start with the gum arabic and the pen and start to actually get the vein work on here. And so it's coming up through here. It's coming around to come up and then over. And so where it goes over, it doesn't join up. It sort of comes up over here and then comes up over that and around. Comes up, around and over. Get bits and pieces of it coming through. Veins coming around. Make that one a little bit stronger. There'll be other veins in through here. I don't mind it when it does some really dark ones. That's coming back up over here. Back out, and through here you'll see these more clearly. That'll give you a nice turn in the leaf. Sounds terrible. They can come through the middle of those or just on the edge. Don't seem to be getting too much colour at the moment. So I'll have to turn it the other way to come around to get the other side of the leaf. And I think I need to get more pigment into this. It's just not painting strongly enough to see it on the dark. A little bit of the Pilbara red coming into rose madder. That should make it go a little bit stronger. Again, the turn of my wrist goes that way. If I lay the nib down a little bit, oh yes, like that, that'll make it a lot stronger. Try to get thin ends on the end of them by lifting the nib. I'm not going to do the same everywhere I go, that's fatal. I'll have a bit of a go without much line work on it, maybe some out into here. And make sure they actually wriggle as well. They don't go dead straight like I've been doing them. This comes over through here, up through, over behind. That'll be a strong one because it's in the light. They're not all that length before something else happens, so I'll put some others on them and once you start to forget what you're doing and just keep working. People asked, how do you know when to stop? Well, basically I keep looking at it. Now, after I've done the artwork to this far, then I'll put it somewhere where I can look at it for a couple of days. And then I'll keep looking at it to find out what I need to do to change it. There's a couple of things I can see already. One of them is the colour of the stem on that one as opposed to the others straight away. So what I'll do, while I've still got the colour, I'll just pick up the paint at this stage and just put a little bit on some of them here that will just pick up that colour again. And so that'll pick up that strong colour. I don't even think that's strong enough either, and match that colour to actually have them so that there's some unity between your artwork. This one here, probably at the top, probably up round here. that makes that stand out a lot more, and it could actually come down here in a little bit of a dip. And so it makes you want to look at the artwork. If you've got an artwork that's not interesting, then it really makes it hard to look at the artwork. Some of these, they were very strong to start with. So what I'm going to do is come back and darken them and see if I can get them to be useful instead of looking like they're semi-painted. They're not really strongly painted and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm just going to add to some of those. So they're a bit stronger, and so some of these I could add to some of those. But only occasionally, just looking at the odd one. All right, now that needs to be put aside and just look at it for a while and see if I need to change anything or anything I don't like, but it needs time. The other thing is if you put it up in front of a mirror, you'll see straight away if there's something that's not right. Sometimes I leave things undone too that would noticeably people go, oh, but why didn't you do that? Well, because you expect me to. It's something that challenges people to keep looking at the artwork because it's not all spelt out exactly as it should be. So a photograph at the end of that and then sit it up somewhere, and you'll be able to see if you're happy with the artwork or if you need to do anything else. Sometimes less is best. You can overpaint something and you can't paint an artwork into submission. It doesn't work. So happy painting.